Hello, welcome to I'm Not Triggered the podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Purchase, and I'm going to help you get your shit together one issue at a time. Today, we're going to talk about DBT and Wise Mind. We're going to talk about what Wise Mind is, how it helps us, how do we access it more reliably, especially when our emotions are really heightened. And we're going to go through a few examples of how to use Wise Mind in our daily lives. But to start this episode off, I wanted to tell you a personal story about one instance in my life. There are many, I'm sure for most of us, that I did not listen to my wise mind, or we also call this our intuition in our culture as well. It's called a lot of things. It's called our conscience, our little voice, the little whisper. And this wise mind is the thing inside all of us that typically knows when a situation is a positive or a negative for us. And it gives us information about what to do in these circumstances. But when our emotions are really high, we can't actually access our wise mind because our entire frontal lobe, it goes offline pretty much. So mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, helps us be able to access our wise mind even when our emotions are really high. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, this personal story takes place about 12-ish years ago, and I was in a relationship that had turned abusive, and I stayed for too long. I stayed for a few years, and I don't know that I would have left, actually, if certain circumstances hadn't occurred. I don't know that I would have left when I did. Now, this relationship that I was in, it didn't start off abusive, but slowly over time, it turned into a toxic relationship, and it was mentally and emotionally abusive. There was some other abuse too, but for purposes of today, the point is that I knew from like the very beginning that this relationship and this person, they were not a good fit for me. And I did it anyway. And I kept doing it, even though the voice inside of me, and it got louder and louder and louder. And I kept doing things to try to shut it up. It never stopped. I just started ignoring it. And in this relationship, I just started telling myself it's not that bad, or everybody's relationships have troubles. Not like this. Relationship shouldn't be like it was. I should not have felt unsafe, insecure, and fearful in my relationship. Nobody should. So the point of that is, had I listened to my wise mind or my intuition or that little voice, I maybe would not have gotten into that relationship, or I would have left it entirely on my own without other circumstances taking place. So what is wise mind? Wise mind can be described as this place where emotion and logic meet. Now, in every therapeutic class I've been in, wise mind is shown as these three circles, right? You've got your reason mind, your wise mind, and your emotion mind. So wise mind is this middle space between our emotions, what we're feeling, what we want to do, our urges and desires, and what's best for us in this situation. Now, wise mind is really important in terms of self-trust. In order to help build self-trust, that's not good for us. So, and the most amazing thing about wise mind is that, each one of us is a very unique individual, right? None of us is special. And that also means that what's good for me may not be good for you. What doesn't work for me might work great for you, but we're all different, and I don't actually know. I can't sit here and tell you with definitive 100% certainty that I know what is going to be good for you based on my own experiences, beliefs, and thoughts, right? That doesn't work. So oftentimes when we're giving advice to friends or family, that's coming from a place of good intention, but it's also coming from a place that is based in our own experiences, projections, beliefs, and thoughts. So our wise mind is uniquely ours. No wise mind's the same. It's like a snowflake or a fingerprint. Think of it that way. And the only way for you to know what's best for you is to explore what works and doesn't work for you. Now, to kind of explore wise mind and how to access it, I'm going to do this visual. And this visual, I learned about this visual in DBT therapy group, but this visual is actually also by Dr. Marcia Linehan, and she calls this the emotion well. And the emotion well is pertinent to wise mind because at the bottom of this emotion well is our wise mind. Well, what's an emotion well? So a well, right, dug in the ground, it's filled with water. And when you want water, you pull the water from the well, and there you got your water, right? But the thing is, with our well here, there's a lot of debris in it. We've had this well for a long time, and so we've had experiences, and we've had thoughts, and we've had traumas, and all of these things add to this emotion well, because when we have experiences, we have emotions that go with them, and emotions love to attach to experiences. They do. Now, just below the surface of this well, we can see all of this debris, right? Our reactive thoughts, immediate judgments, our knee-jerk responses, our habitual patterns. And these are the first things that we're going to encounter when our emotions rise up in the first place. Now, the wise mind at the bottom can be really hard to access because of all the stuff on top. And as we have experiences and do not process them and do not process the emotions that come up with these experiences, the debris in our emotion well piles up, which makes it much more difficult to get to the wise mind if the wise mind sits at the bottom. So how do we clear out this debris if it's just been packed in there forever? Like, what do we do? It seems like a lot and it seems overwhelming, right? Much like after a natural disaster, there's cleanup. How do they do it? Slowly, little bit by little bit, right? So if we can process through our emotions, we can start to empty out this debris, which clears the way for us to be able to get to our wise mind much more quickly. Now, practices like mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, these are the skills that teach us how to dive down deep into these debris-filled, cold, dark waters of our emotions and learn to process through and get rid of some of the shit that's in our well. So we've talked about wise mind, and I want to just jump to extreme thinking, or what DBT calls black and white thinking. Now, psychologists have long studied the negative impacts of extreme thinking or black and white thinking on mental health. And research has shown that people who frequently think in extremes are more likely to experience mood swings, depression, anxiety. And one study that was published in the Journal of Affective Disorders, and the links will be in my Substack, which is in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like and want to support my work. So this study that was published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found a really strong correlation between dichotomous thinking, extreme thinking, black and white thinking, and emotion dysregulation and distress, right? So the extreme thinking often leads to impulsive behaviors and prolonged periods of indecision, feelings of overwhelm, anxiety. And Dr. Linehan herself has actually emphasized the importance of challenging our extreme thinking in DBT, because thinking in black and white only, it really limits our ability to solve problems. And in some cases, like in my case with the abusive relationship, trapped me and can trap us in these very negative, toxic cycles, right? We kind of trap ourselves. We don't do it on purpose, but we because we have these beliefs and these thoughts, we trap ourselves into situations that are actually really, really harmful for us. Now, in contrast, wise mind, right, helps us see beyond the extremes, beyond the all good, beyond the all bad, the beyond right and wrong. We actually start to be able to see there's a spectrum of choices, there's a spectrum of possibilities when we can access our wise mind. So, how do we do that? I'm going to give you some skills to help you start to navigate these emotions in your well and get access to your wise mind. And I'm going to do that by using a few DBT skills here. And we're going to talk about first, we're going to talk about the stop skill. So the stop skill, right, is we stop, we take a step back, we observe, and then we proceed mindfully. So here we can pause physically. We can literally stop what we're doing. We can take a step back and create distance. So if we're in a situation like I'm on the road and somebody cut me off, my first instinct is to definitely scream, flip them off, chase them down, get really aggressive, maybe violent. That's who I am, and I know that about myself. So the stop skill is really important here, and even something so small as being cut off in traffic. If we can just stop before we react, man, that will go much further in allowing us to access our wise mind. The thing with the stop skill, what I really love about it is it's kind of sneaky in a really good way. The stop skill is great because it teaches us self-trust without teaching us self-trust. It doesn't say that. But if you're in a situation, you get cut off in traffic, you feel extremely angry and just ready to run somebody off the road, you stop. And you just don't do that. You just don't do that. Because if we run someone off the road and we get really aggressive and we yell and we scream, our emotion mind then is taking over. You see what's happening here? And the emotion mind is probably what got us into trouble in the first place. Emotion mind is great for information over a period of time, right? But our emotions can trick us. So with the stop skill, we're able to build self-trust because we're not just immediately responding to our anger and our emotion and putting ourselves in dangerous situations, burning bridges, right? Now, the next skill is called checking the facts. We basically just check the facts. Did that person cut you off? They sure did. Was it personal? It wasn't. We can move on, right? My friend was supposed to call me back and they didn't, and my feelings are hurt because they said they would, and that's the third time they didn't call me back. Yeah, they didn't call you back. That's all we know. We don't know if it was because they don't like you anymore or their grandma died, right? A lot of times with extreme thinking, when we don't have access to our wise mind, we get stuck in these very, very dichotomous either or and very harmful and oftentimes untrue narratives about a situation or the reasons why someone did or did not do something. And we don't actually know. We have to check the facts that we do know before we can make any further assumptions or inquiries, right? The third skill is called middle path thinking. Reminds me a lot of Buddhism. Now, this skill is basically just finding the balance between both and. Middle path thinking allows us to consider other perspectives, maybe than just our own, or that opposite. There might be a middle ground, a middle space, a gray area, right? And then there's one more skill. The last one here is called accepts. So this skill has a bunch of little sub skills built in. So accepts is an acronym. And here it is. So when our emotions are too overwhelming to work with directly, we don't have access to our wise mind, we can do engage in activities that require attention and things that we have immediate access to. Doing a crossword puzzle, doing a color page, just playing Bejeweled or Tetris or something on your phone, right? Like just something that takes attention. You could count to 100, whatever it is. It just takes our mind off of the situation. So C is for contributing. I know this one's kind of weird, but contributing is about remembering that there are other people in your life, there are other people in the world, and we can build compassion even when our emotions are high. Comparison, this one's a little odd because I do think this has a bit of a negative connotation attached. Here, though, this is a positive way of looking at the progress that we ourselves have made, through how we don't react the way that we used to, how we do give a minute to respond, how we do listen without interrupting. We can generate emotions. We can listen to heartbreak songs if we're going through a heartbreak, or we could turn on a funny movie or comedy and laugh, right? We could actually control and influence our emotional state to some degree. Now, pushing away here also sounds kind of negative, but it's not. This simply means it's kind of like the stop skill, but it's built into accepts. It's called a different thing. All we're doing is pushing away that thing that's distressing us for the moment, right? So, like if someone cut me off in traffic last week and I'm still mad about it, I really need to push that away. It's already done. I can't do anything about it, and I can't go back in time and I can't change it. But by continually thinking about it, I get continually emotionally triggered. So if I can push out this experience from my mind, right, eventually the power of that experience and those emotions attached to it will dissipate. So T is for thoughts. Like I said before, it's kind of like the distraction part of the activities, the A. We can count backwards. We can be more aware of what we're thinking. We can try to remember to think more positively and stay open-minded. And then S is for sensations, which means like if we're feeling really overwhelmed, we can hold some ice, we can throw some cold water on our face, we can let the wind blow through our hair, anything like that will help us regulate our emotions and allow us to have access to our wise mind so that we know what to do in a situation. Now, the key to using the accepts skill, though, is like just choose an option that works for you in the moment. And if we know for sure what works for us to regulate our emotions, that's a great thing to jump into. For me, that's music. For you, that might be coloring, taking a walk, I don't know, hanging out with your pets, fixing cars, whatever, doing jewelry, nail paint, like whatever it is, whatever you know that soothes you, like that's probably the go-to thing when you're feeling heightened emotion. Now, what all of that does, it just allows us to create space so we can access our wise mind, right? Now, let's not forget, right, that self-trust is actually the most important portion here. So the more often we're aware of what our wise mind is telling us, and the more often that we heed it, the greater our self-trust, the greater our self-confidence, right? So accessing our wise mind, we all have one, and we can all do it. It just takes some practice. I hope that today you have some useful skills now that will allow you to access your wise mind and get to know it better and maybe heed it. Build some self-trust. Let me know what you liked in the comments. Be nice about what you didn't. And I really appreciate you joining me today. You can find all the information and the research used in this episode in my post on my Substack, and that link is in the description below. Take good care of yourself.